Hi everyone. Today I want to introduce you to a really unique project called Pepr. What Pepr is a little bit difficult to explain, but hopefully throughout this interactive scenario you will have a better understanding at the end. But in a nutshell, it advertises itself as a configuration as code for IT ops. It also uses a phrase Kubernetes Middleware. And there's a few characteristics. First of all, it uses TypeScript to define various policies that you can apply to a cluster. So that's different. That's new. The TypeScript, though, as we will see, is really straightforward. It uses a builder pattern and kind of it almost reads like a plain English. The idea is that you can convert your knowledge in organization and codify it into a maintainable TypeScript modules. It uses under the hood admission controllers and webhooks. So in this sense, it's similar to projects like Kyverno or OPA, but it can do more. So it can do webhooks, but it also has an internal store. It can act a little bit like an operator. We will see all this in action. So that was just a brief introduction to Pepr. And it, of course, has a cute mascot, which is super important. Here we can see a diagram. It's really, really nice diagram. It's a bit overwhelming, but very well done. We're not going to go through each step, but this essentially shows how Pepr uses admission controllers and webhooks under the hood to validate, mutate, or watch for resources. So let's kick things off by installing Pepr. So in order to do this, you need Node.js, npm, and by default, Pepr works with K3s, which is a distribution of Kubernetes that is suitable for small devices, edge, and so on. So I have already installed those things in here, so we have them available. First, let's source bashrc to make sure we have all the variables there, and we can install it with npm. So Pepr is written in TypeScript. This will install a Pepr CLI. They recommend on the webpage to use npx, but I wanted to have this installed with npm. So obviously it works as well. I'm not sure if this is supported on the long run, but I prefer installing it with npm. So while this command runs, we can talk a little bit about the environment itself. Obviously it's Killer Coda. You can see I'm clicking various code blocks and they are being executed in the terminal. And you can do this yourself. I will leave a link to the workshop in the video description. And this video that you are watching now can be a good companion to go through it. Okay, so we got it installed. Now let's run Pepr help to see what commands we have. So quite a few commands, init, build, and my favorite, KFC. That has to win an Oscar. KFC stands for Kubernetes Fluent Client, which is another project from the company that developed this. All right, installation done. Let's do something cool with it. So first thing we can do with Pepr, we can create a module. And a module really is just a box for various capabilities that we will see and create a little later. So let's do it. It asks me to enter the module name. We can click those responses and they will be introduced. By the way, I've spoken to project maintainers and they will in the future introduce flags to this command so it can be fully automated. But for now, we have to click through it. So what this does, it generates a bunch of files and essentially a Node.js project with a bunch of stuff. So the stuff is as follows. We have README file, capabilities with the TypeScript file and samples. We'll see those files a little later, package.json and other configuration files. Nothing crazy here, just a regular Node.js app. So let's start Tmax and actually run Pepr. So when we run Pepr with pepr dev command, what it does, it uses the current kubeconfig and connects the locally running instance of Pepr to the cluster. So this is a typical way of developing controllers, for example, that we can locally run them without needing to install or create a deployment with a controller on the cluster. So it outputs a few helpful logs and messages, and essentially it is running as a webhook. We'll see this later in a moment. So what this command does, this command creates a Pepr system namespace. It will be an empty namespace for now, and it creates a Pepr store CRD. Pepr store is used to exchange essentially messages or content between various modules. So let's recap real quick what admissions controllers are and what webhooks are. So Pepr uses mutating webhook configuration and validating webhook configuration, and those are essentially a way for Kubernetes to define something that is going to trigger on certain events or actions within the cluster. And those configurations specify rules for how and what is being accepted, denied, modified, and so on. A lot of projects in Kubernetes space work with admission controllers and webhooks to modify resources that you submit to the cluster, and Pepr is not different here. A quick reminder what CRD is for the Pepr store CRD. This stands for Custom Resource Definition, and it's essentially an open API spec that defines an object, a custom resource. You can read all about this in the links here, but otherwise, that's what we get. So now we got the Pepr module with Pepr capabilities, and we can deploy a bunch of sample YAML and see here what's going to happen. So let's give it a go. And you can see that obviously you have a bunch of logs coming, but also here we've created a config map. We've created various other things. And this guy, for example, says error when creating hello Pepr samples, admission webhook, denied the request. And this is a config map that has an annotation evil. So you can see it can act as a policy enforcement engine. And we will see all the files in a second. I just wanted to show you first how Pepr works. Let's take a peek in the cluster. So this environment comes with pre-built Octant, which is a kind of a cluster viewer. Let's make it way bigger here. So first of all, we can see those webhooks. We have two webhooks that Pepr deployed for us. We have a mutating webhook configuration that comes by default with Pepr. And here you can see the configuration here and all the settings that Pepr creates for us. And another webhook is validating webhook. Similarly, we have similar settings here. So those are Kubernetes objects essentially that Pepr creates and configures. Other than that, Pepr created a Pepr system namespace for us that doesn't have anything right now. And there is, of course, some RBAC. And maybe one last thing, I can show you the custom resource definition here. That is a Pepr store. This is not it. Let me find it again. Make it a little bit bigger, and this should start from Pepr. There it is, Pepr stores dev. So this is the custom resource definition describing the store object. Just a CRD. We don't have yet custom resources because we're just operating in dev mode now. All right, so that's how our cluster looks like. It has those 2 webhooks and the namespace. Okay, great. Let's look at the files that Pepr created for us. Remember, we have this hello Pepr TS and various Kubernetes objects that are then samples. So hello Pepr TS is a capability. It lives in the capabilities directory, and then you can see here it's just a TypeScript. You're importing various libraries here from Pepr, things like Kubernetes, log, a, which is just for objects, kind, and so on. So once we do this, we can work with it as any other Kubernetes, any other TypeScript file. So when Pepr says that they have an intuitive way of designing policies and capabilities, rather, that's true, right? So it has English reading like when a namespace is created, then use a mutate action. And in this case, remove the label. And it kind of goes on like that. You can see various examples of those capabilities that a module can have. So module is just a box of capabilities. Once we deploy this or run this in a dev mode like we are doing now, Pepr is going to essentially apply those things and watch for any files or any resources that we define. In this case, let's say a namespace or maybe a pod, and then accordingly act to it, a config map here and so on. So this can be arbitrarily complicated, and we're going to create our own capability soon. Here, this is just a simple Kubernetes YAML file, nothing special here. Those are just various example Kubernetes objects that are being created in kind of hello world of Pepr. All right. So let's develop a custom capability. Pepr's claim to fame is really that they are configuration as code for IT operations, DevOps maybe platform. And one of the most common tasks for those teams is creating backups. So let's see how hard or how easy it is to create a backup module with the capability of backing up YAML files. So let's initialize a new Pepr module. Those modules, by the way, are completely independent from each other. So you can deploy several Pepr modules. They are being governed by different controllers. So this is kind of a distributed system. So we've created a YAML backup module, and Pepr is creating the same folder structure as we've seen earlier with a hello world module. This being Node.js takes a little while. That's one thing I'm thinking about, that choosing TypeScript has its pros and cons. On one hand, myself, I come from development, but I've spent most of my career in infrastructure. So I am somewhat familiar with JavaScript and TypeScript, although those were never my main languages. But as an ops person, I'm more familiar with, let's say, Shell or YAML. So thankfully, this TypeScript DSL that they have is relatively simple. But if you want to do something a little bit more complicated, then you just need to know TypeScript. Maybe they will add a little bit more languages in the future. But if you know TypeScript, you're in luck, because that's supported. All right, so let's create a backup TS capability. Again, here you can see we are using Pepr SDK. We're importing a capability, log, and a object. And we are also adding a few more libraries just to access file system and convert between JSON and YAML. And the capability is relatively simple. So when a pod is created in any namespace, mutate it. We could also use watch here. We just grab the raw request and check the pod name from the raw request. By the way, if you create a deployment, as we will see, Kubernetes uses a generated name before the pods are being deployed. So when this action triggers, we will not yet have a pod name. That's why we have to use a generated name. And what it does, it essentially creates a file in the temp folder with this generated name. And then writes the file to the disk, gives us a nice log message. And that's essentially the whole capability. We can take any YAML file that we create and save it to a node folder. So let's create this file. We also have to modify a Pepr TypeScript, pepr.ts, which is just a module file. It tells us which modules are part of this deployment. In our case, we had to remove the Hello World Pepr module and instead reference our module. So we name it save pod YAML, and it's located in capabilities, and then backup is the name of the file without the TS extension. That's again typical way how you reference and import modules in TypeScript. So let's do this. Now I just want to use the Pepr format command to see if we can run it correctly. I think what we forgot to do is to cd into the folder here. So let me see. I think I need to run this one more time. This is now in Pepr.ts, and then now we can run the Pepr format. So Pepr format is like, you know, Terraform, FMT or others. It's just going to format the file correctly. And now we have everything ready, and we can see if our Pepr capability works. Let's start Tmux one more time. We are going to use Pepr dev, the same command as earlier, to run our Pepr in dev mode. And this time we are running our module, which we just created from YAML backup. This is going to take a moment again to stand everything up. And let's see if this will work. Here in Octant, this doesn't work. Cannot find module. We are in the correct file, although I think what might happen is we didn't cd into this folder and probably need to write this file again. So let's try it one more time. We don't have to cd here, so we're just going to type the command pepr dev firm, and let's see if this works. And we forgot to run the format command that Pepr tells us that the format is not correctly. But that should work. So this time it worked. We are in the right folder, and our Pepr capability is deployed. So let's see if we can run kubectl create deployment here. We go back to the other terminal. Okay, we have created the nginx deployment. Let's see if it created something for us in the temp directory. Yes, we have an nginx and this generated name. And when we check it, it's indeed our pod YAML. So that worked. That was the way how we could create a Pepr capability and deploy it. So once we are done with the development phase, we can actually deploy the controller. The way to do this is quite interesting. So first of all, we have to again I'm gonna make sure we are already in this YAML backup folder. So we just do pepr format, and then we can do pepr build, and pepr build is going to generate for us various artifacts that we can deploy. And those artifacts are, they are Kubernetes artifacts, but also Helm, which is really cool. Pepr build. Yeah, I wish they could be customized as well, or others, but it's a nice way of kind of generating the build artifact like this, and then we can take it from there and put it in our GitOps solution, or just deploy it like that. All right, so we have this artifacts here, and you can see if we do in the dist folder, we have various, there is a map file, there is Zarf, which is also a project from the same guys that develop Pepr. And this is our YAML file here, and also Helm directory. So quite nice deployment mode here. Okay, let's apply. The YAML file is just, you know, controller and a bunch of services and secrets. So that's all applied to our cluster, and we can go back to Octant. And now we see that we have our pod, but we should also have something in Pepr system. And now we have two workloads in Pepr system namespace. So we have deployment, replica set that is coming online, and we have two pods based on our one deployment. So this is great. We can check the deployments here. We have Pepr here, and they have two pods. So this is running our controller, and we would also obviously have the webhooks deployed now through Pepr. So this is the way how the actual deployment works. So how can we monitor Pepr? Pepr adds, for all I know, in the next version, they are going to add some more Prometheus metrics, so you can monitor installation itself, but we can use this Pepr UUID, and this time I'm using npx, and this gives us a module ID, and module ID comes from the package JSON. This essentially uniquely describes your module. I believe this would be this ID right here. And now we can run Pepr monitor, and Pepr monitor is going to show us various metrics, and when we do validation or mutation or other actions. We would of course have to actually run something. So let us try again. I'm gonna open a new tab here. The do kube run Unix 2. I think it's like this. Webhook failed to call webhook. There's something wrong with the, I think the problem is that we didn't specify the registry. So since this is a local installation, we didn't specify a registry. We need to specify a registry configuration for Pepr to work. But anyway, that's how you could monitor various actions. All right, so that's it. You made it till the end. Thank you for sticking out till the end. A little summary. Pepr is a really intriguing project. I've worked with technologies like Kyverno and shell operator, and in my mind, Pepr kind of takes something from both. It has this kind of policy enforcement nature with validating and mutating webhooks. So you can use it to craft modules and capabilities that would do just that, but it also can automate beyond just Kubernetes objects, which reminds me of shell operator. It's kind of a very similar concept that almost behaves like an operator SDK, if you will, which is quite powerful together if you combine those two things, as we've seen on the backup capability demo. What I like about Pepr is its abstractions. The capabilities, modules, actions, they're very simple, easy to understand, and kind of lends themselves well to create even complex policies. What still remains to be seen is how the project grows. This very new project, it's very promising, but there's quite a few things that needs to happen. I am curious how it would look like at scale, having, you know, maybe hundreds of capabilities with multiple modules and so on, and how it would collaborate with other CNCF ecosystem projects. It remains to be seen, but again, I think it's a really interesting project. I still not sure how I feel about choice of TypeScript. I would definitely prefer this to be, let's say, Go or maybe even Python. But I'm not like super opposing to TypeScript either. This will probably just appeal to people that know TypeScript already, and you know, be a little bit deterrent to those who don't. But the syntax is indeed easier. All right, so a few links. If you want to learn more about the project, visit Pepr's GitHub. The company behind it is called Defense Unicorns, which have a super cute logo as well. And you can see the project has 147 stars and quite healthy number of contributors, and they're just going strong developing it. So that's one page to check. They have also very nicely put together docs. I think this is a little typo in the title, this pipe here. But the docs are super cool. Again, the mascot is really, really nice, and they explain well what you can do with Pepr and how you can run capabilities. You can also join the Slack channel and chat with maintainers. They're super friendly and definitely would be eager to hear from you. And if you like this type of content, I post frequently on Medium, blogs typically related to Kubernetes or other CNCF projects. And I also have my own YouTube channel, as you know, as you're watching it, where I release mostly videos about programming and also cloud native topics. So please do follow me on Medium and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're interested. Give it a like. And yeah, let me know what you think about Pepr. Do you think it's a project you would use? I find it really interesting, and I'm kind of looking forward to see how it develops. All right. Thank you for sticking to the end, and see you in next video.